Hello everyone, SoranotRoxas here, and it's that time of the year again where another season finale of The Walking Dead has happened. This leads to people being confused about what the heck we're going to do on our Sundays, as well as look forward to the new spin-off series which is going to be in the summer, which is called Fear of the Walking Dead. Does this mean that it's going to be Walking Dead basically year-round? Although the new spin-off series will only be 6 episodes, it's going to continue way into next year, as well as the next season, which is season 6 of The Walking Dead coming back. So that's going to be interesting, yeah. But a lot of people are kind of scratching their heads and saying, well, what are we going to do on Sunday besides we go to church in the morning, but what else is we're going to do Sunday night? Well, there is Games of Thrones. You also got Mad Men coming back. Better Call Saul hasn't gone off yet, but that's only on Monday, so I guess that doesn't count. But well, you got stuff like that coming back. There's only one thing to talk about. My Little Pony. Yes, that's also coming back this week on Saturday. Alright. And I haven't finished my last part of the review for that either, which I really gotta do that. But it seems like I'm getting distracted here, because as this video is titled, it's not talking about any of those things. So why the hell did I bring it up? No, there's no point of it. So let's go right into the topic that's actually the title of this video. Is this Disney's revival era? Now granted, we know all the Disney's classics such as things like Peter Pan, or whether it's Fox and the Hound, or Robin Hood, or The Jungle Book, or anything like that. Those are like more of the Disney classics, right? And then as time went on, we got the Disney Renaissance era, which is my personal favorite era of Disney, which went from 1989 to 1999. This includes movies from The Little Mermaid all the way to Tarzan, including such awesome movies as Beauty and the Beast, as well as another awesome movie titled Aladdin. These are one or two of my all-time favorite movies. Of course, I did like Tarzan as well as a number of other movies during the Renaissance era. There was a lot of Disney just making great animated movies back-to-back to the point where they totally dominated the 90s. Even their TV shows were doing well, such as DuckTales, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, and Darkwing Duck, as well as Tailspin. These were fantastic things. Disney was on a roll for this year. Well, that entire decade. And unfortunately, they will have to go another decade of just sort of mediocrity. Not necessarily bad movies. We did get some good ones here or there in between 1999 to 2009, which was sort of like, I guess, Lilo and Stitch. That was a really good one, and that came out in 2002. And you know what? I kind of like Treasure Planet, although that did come out in 2001. I'm sure of it. It didn't do as good at the box office as Disney wanted, at least not as good as Lilo and Stitch. Although with Lilo and Stitch, and of course with the success of a movie, they have to make not only a TV series but multiple sequels out of them. That was the decade of Disney sequels, as we just got pointless sequel after sequel. Whether it was Cinderella, Hunchback of Notre Dame, or freaking Tarzan 2. Yep, sequels that nobody remembers or gives a shit about. Disney wasn't really making any good movies from that time period for that over decade. I guess people can argue, well, you know, what about the Toy Story sequels and whatnot? Yeah, and those are fine. For the most part, Pixar, for that entire 10 years, even with the success of something like Cars, for goodness sake, was actually doing pretty well for that entire decade. So, with Disney doing so well, Disney's Pixar doing so well, which is a sub-company of Disney, that's kind of like saying, well, ABC is was the best news broadcasting show during that 10-year gap. Just because it's a sub-company of Disney doesn't necessarily mean we're talking about Disney. Disney itself looked upon this and said, what is becoming the norm right now as far as modern-day movies? Well, they have to be either, one, fucking inanimate objects that can talk for some reason, or two, 3D. Since Disney's not going to go down that route too much of just the talking inanimate objects, they decided to keep their whole anthropomorphic animals, which is fine with me, because then we got a movie called The Princess and the Frog. This was released in 2009, and of course you guys all know about that. It was the first African-American princess to ever be presented by Disney Studios. Of course, this sparked two debates. One, people saying that I don't get why she was made African American, and two, people saying that I'm not racist. So I'm going to go see this movie anyway, regardless of what my opinions are, and I'm not going to state them at all. You fucking racist. Either way, the movie came out in 2009, and it was in 2D animation, which is fine for me because personally I actually kind of prefer the 2D animation over the 3D that we have nowadays. But with the success of Princess and the Frog, this actually started Disney's revival era. And what does this mean for Disney? Well, this means that they actually can start making good movies again. So, even though The Princess and the Frog was well received at the box office as well as from critics and audiences alike, it wasn't exactly what Disney was really hoping for. They was looking for a big phenomenon to take storm. They was looking for the Lion King, the Beauty and the Beast of the world, the Aladdin of the world. And The Princess and the Frog just wasn't it. And this has come from somebody that actually really loves the film. But even I can admit that it just wasn't there yet. It was getting there. It was on the right path. It felt like the old school Disney magic, the 2D animation as well as the musicals and stuff. Although there's actually like a couple of songs that you probably won't remember. But everyone remembers He Got Friends on the Other Side. You know, everyone remembers that song. That was a pretty good song, sung by Keith David. And with that being said, they were still looking for that spark. They wanted to get a movie out to where they could sell these freaking merchandise. And Princess of the Frog, like I said, did fine even on that front, but not where Disney wanted it to be. So what did they do? Well, like I said earlier, they did take a look at Pixar and they decided, well, what was the second thing that we talked about? Oh, they make 3D movies. Okay, so let's make our next big Walt Disney Pictures release 3D. Then we got Tangled. And my god, do I love Tangled. Tangled was so good. It had everything. It had songs that you can remember. Once again, lovable characters, just like the Princess and the Frog. Really good voice acting, just like Princess and the Frog. But better storytelling. Yeah, you know, for Disney to have say, oh, this is our first African-American main character, and don't get me wrong, Tiana was a very strong, independent black woman. But at the same time, have you guys noticed that 85% of the movie she was actually, well, a frog? Yeah, for the majority of the movie she was actually an animal. Way to dodge that, Disney. You fucking racist. You would think that, oh, well, we're building up this African, and I like how she did not start off as a princess. She actually became that, and that's what her story was about. Her becoming, well, married to this prince and becoming a princess. So I'm not spoiling anything here. That was in 2009. If you haven't seen it 15 years ago, then you should have seen it now. Anyway. You would think that it would be more of the princess portion, or well, her being human, and Tangled kind of did this. They kind of did what the Princess and the Frog didn't do. But of course, you know, it's Disney, you gotta keep the funny animal characters, although they don't talk this time around, which is interesting because I think Frozen did the same thing as well with the animals not talking, but yet the magical creatures are the one that are able to talk, such as the trolls and Olaf the snowman. But we'll get to that in a second. Because it seemed like Tangled actually was the first one to start doing this. Anything that was sort of magic in that world, which didn't seem like a lot of magic except for from Rapunzel's hair, it was the animals in that wasn't able to talk like the last animated feature. Then that's fine. I didn't take away from the film. They were still entertaining as hell. You know, I freaking love that horse. But Maximus, I think that's his name. But this was more to Disney's liking. This made box office success. Everybody loved it. Perfect film. Like I said, critics love it again. Once again, audience really loved it. People flocked to this a little bit more, and I think it's mostly because of the story, and possibly less on the 3D. Possibly a little bit on the 3D animation. I'm gonna say less because I do prefer that 2D animation, and they did come back to that when they released Winnie the Pooh a year later in 2011. Yeah, that went back to the 2D animation style, although people kind of glanced over that. I still thought it was a pretty good flick. And it seemed like other critics did agree with me, as well as some audiences that did actually go see this. Yeah, it's Winnie the Pooh, so a lot of people are going to say, well, it's cutesy and whatnot, but it was still a pretty good movie. And I think it did justice to the original Winnie the Pooh, as well as updating it. Although, once again, they managed to squeeze some CGI into that with the honey pot scenario. That was kind of weird. Yeah, this movie is completely 2D, just like Princess and the Frog. And yet, you still put CGI in it, so... that kind of takes away from it, don't you think? But nonetheless, it was still a good flick. And then we move on to our next one. Disney said, well, Winnie the Pooh was still good, but it wasn't to where we really wanted. It was well received, but it didn't make us enough money, possibly not as enough money as Princess and the Frog did. And definitely not as enough as Tangled did, which was the highest grossing, I think, at the time. Well, what can we do next? Just do the same thing we did before. Let's just go back to 2D. Oh, I remember the whole talk about inanimate objects or sort of like things in the world that you wouldn't expect to be alive actually come alive. Well, let's do that with our Toy Story version of Walt Disney, Wreck-It Ralph. Yep, this came out in 2012 and this movie was freaking awesome. I love this movie. I've seen it 3 times already. And do I like it more than Tangled? Well, I'm going to be a little biased here. Wreck-It Ralph has a lot of video game themed stuff in it, and me as a big gamer and as a video game reviewer, of course I enjoy that possibly a little bit more than the standard princess fairy tale, although I do love Rapunzel and I can watch Tangled multiple times. I would say though that the advertising was a bit misleading, as it seems as though the movie was going to feature, I'm even calling it a game, the movie was going to feature a lot of video game characters. Of course, this wasn't the case. It was only a few video game characters in the beginning. Yeah, only a few even have speaking lines. There were a lot in the background, such as Sonic the Hedgehog, and he actually spoke once in the movie. But it wasn't exactly how Disney advertised it. You know, sort of like a previous project of theirs. Yeah, starting to kind of sound familiar. They kind of went down a bit of the Princess and the Frog route. But nonetheless, Wreck-It Ralph did fantastic at the box office. Even got nominated for an Oscar. Did it win it? Nope, because it lost to a movie done by who? Pixar, and their 3D animation of Princess again. So what does that mean for Disney once again? Well, we had another successful movie this year that did really well next to Tangled. It almost won us the Oscar, but our sub-company Pixar got it. Why did they get it? Well, we had everything. We had the 3D animation, we had the great characters, as well as a very good setting and a very well-developed story. But what was we missing? A princess! And then we got Let It Go, Let It Go, and away and slam the door. I don't get. We got Frozen. Yeah, Frozen. And this was the film that obviously brought Disney to its peak. After about so many years, an entire decade of just crappy movies or mediocre or ones that are kind of glanced over in a million amount of sequels. Oh god, we can go through all the sequels if you want, but I'm not going to. We finally got something that felt like an old Disney classic and yet bringing something new with its wonderful 3D animation as well as its beautifully written songs. And of course sung very well by its actors. I have to say, Frozen is definitely one of my top 5 Disney films now. Yeah, believe it or not it is. And I did kind of jump on the Let It Go phase with everybody else, and it seems like a lot of people still haven't finished jumping off that train yet. I've jumped off of it a while ago, although I just sung it just now. It's still, and I still know the words. It's like literally impossible to forget the words. It's kind of like that other song. Some songs that Disney do can just never leave you. Tale as Old as Time, A Whole New World, DuckTales, I'm Gonna Wreck It. Okay, so that wasn't a theme song, that was just a slogan, but it was still memorable. You can always remember that. And Frozen was the same way. It was memorable, it was good. and a lot of people enjoyed it, audiences mostly. And there was some skeptic from critics. There was actually really good reviews, as some mixed reviews, oddly enough. Yeah, there was actually some critics that really didn't like the film. I don't see why. Even if you don't like it, it's still some, or well, you see some negativity in it, which there is negativity in every film. It's harmless. It really is. But with the success of basically all these movies, of course Frozen being the highest grossing animated film, especially from Disney, beating out such things as The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, it's been a very good few years for Disney. This seems to only last for about 10 years and then it goes off for 10 more years and then it comes back on. So I have to say, enjoy this revival era. Because after the 10-year cycle is up, which is 2019, it will seem, Disney will go back to doing just movies that you're going to glance over. Which leads us into the live-action Disney movies. Ugh, God, the live-action ones. I think it really started with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a huge Tim Burton fan. I always liked Tim Burton ever since the 90s with Nightmare Before Christmas. And, of course, the Batman movies. But I have to be honest with you guys. Although I did like Alice in Wonderland, you know, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, it's a shame you have to make that depiction now because the animated version was actually even better, obviously. The live-action version, although I do like it and I still like it, I still enjoy it, it's a dumb movie. It's really stupid. It's all over the place. They're trying to bring logic and order to a place that needs no logic and order. But for some reason, I still enjoy it. And then we got to something like Maleficent, which I already complained about that movie. You know, if you want to go see my review on that, by all means, go check out my review on Maleficent, and you can get my real thoughts there. There was definitely a problem with that one, and I've named the number of problems. I'm not going to go through it again. It didn't make my top worst list movies for the year of 2014, but it would have so been up there if I did not see those other movies that actually ended up making it to the list. And it didn't even make it to the honorable mentions, which is well, dishonorable mentions I call it, which is good. That's nice that it didn't make that list, but it was so close to doing so, and it only did not make that list from the skin of its teeth because I was busy with other movies at the time. Well, even with that being said, Tim Burton's live-action Alice in Wonderland did do really good at the box office, as well as Maleficent did even better at the box office. What does this mean? Well, just like the 3D animation with Tangled I mentioned earlier, they're gonna make more live-action versions of their old Disney films. Well, we already did Alice in Wonderland and Sleeping Beauty. All that's left is every movie from the Disney Renaissance. Yeah. I bet you're gonna be surprised when you see the live-action Beauty and the Beast movie, starring Emma Watson, as well as the live-action Jungle Book movie. No, not that Jungle Book movie. That Jungle Book movie. Yes, they're making a new one. And guess who's playing a CGI Baloo? Bill Murray. This is going to be interesting. I can't wait to see that movie and just review that. Ugh. Yeah, it's funny. I have not seen Cinderella yet, but I can already tell that was just a promotion, just to sell dresses. And oddly enough, the same time that the movie actually got really successful at the box office, Disney started selling dresses. This isn't a new practice. They've been doing this for years. You know, they will re-release a movie. They re-released Cinderella in the 90s, and guess what? They started selling dresses and a whole bunch of girly stuff for the little kids to pretend that they're princesses and things like that. This is not new. Disney has been doing this practice for years, but I'm glad that a lot of people did catch this and just say, this is just a cash-in just for you guys to redo the same story, re-release it again, just so you can sell your shit again, rather than coming up with something else. You know, with something like Wreck-It Ralph, which was so original, or Frozen, which was so original, their live-action movies are so unoriginal. Sometimes you do get ones that slip through the cracks, but they mostly get looked over and they just turn out to be mediocre. The ones that really get a lot of looks at is the ones that are kind of based off their old animated films and just made into live action. Think about how many people are going to go see The Jungle Book when it comes out in their live action version. Of course, it's hopefully not like the other live action version featuring Jason Scott Lee, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. And well, that's all I got to say on the matter. So is Disney back? Is this really their revival era? Are we seeing sort of like the second renaissance of Disney? Well, it sure as hell feels like it. And then with a Frozen 2 on the way, I can't wait to see what they do. Of course, this only just includes the animated movies, but I have not seen Cinderella yet, and it's getting crazy good reviews, as well as nice feedback from the audiences, but I can't tell whether that's people in general or just kids dragging their parents to the theater. With that being said, if a movie like freaking Home can be at the top of the box office, and I know that movie's gonna suck. I know it possibly did suck. I haven't read any review on it though, but I can just tell from the commercial it was gonna suck. If that can do good, then anything has a chance. Well everybody, thank you for watching this video, just to hear me talk about stuff, and go watch these movies. Yeah, go watch these movies if you get a chance, pick them up. If you haven't seen any classical Disney stuff, go ahead and rent them. See the Renaissance era, see the classic Disney masterpieces, Peter Pan, Fox and the Hound. I don't think that's considered a masterpiece anymore. Bambi, you know, go see those. Of course, if you grew up like me, you possibly already seen them, and you have haunting memories of Bambi's mother. Or Mufasa. Damn you, Disney! Well, at least I can say they're going into a more cheery route with their movies now. But we'll see what the future holds, especially for the live-action ones. I can't believe they're making a live-action Jungle Book movie, really. What's next? Dumbo? No. You're joking me. They're making a live-action Dumbo movie? Who's directing it? Taking my fucking movies. I'm done!